This is Medical Device Legal News. Today is May 16th, 2023. I'm Sam Bernstein. On May 15th, a nearly $490 million False Claims Act verdict against ophthalmology distributor Precision Lens was upheld by a Minnesota federal judge who indicated the jury had correctly calculated the verdict. As McGuire previously reported in March, the government alleged that Precision Lens took positions on high-end skiing, fishing, golfing, hunting, sporting, and entertainment vacations to induce them to purchase and use Precision Lens products in violation of the federal anti-kickback statute. The complaint also alleged that the defendants sold frequent flyer miles to the physicians at a significant discount and flew physicians on private jets to lavish locations free of charge. This is an example of a rare case where a defendant, rather than settle anti-kickback and False Claims Act allegations, elects to go to trial. As a result of losing at trial and subject to further appeals, Precision Lens will be required to pay treble damages as well as actually minimum penalties of $5,500 and $13,508 per claim on 64,575 claims. So this represents minimum penalties under the False Claims Act. That's how they got to the $490 million verdict. They could have actually gone in excess of $800 million in this case. This case serves as an excellent example of the risk that medical device manufacturers and distributors incur by not having an effective compliance program that identifies and corrects compliance issues. It also reflects this very significant risk of seeking to litigate and defend against False Claims Act allegations rather than trying to reach an amicable settlement with DOJ. One of the challenges with False Claims Act and anti-kickback cases is the substantial penalties under the False Claims Act that may occur if the company is found guilty of violating the anti-kickback statute and False Claims Act. And those penalties are updated each year to account for inflation and are now quite substantial, that 13,500 number, and then on the high end up to over 27,000. On May 2nd, the Medical Device Innovation Consortium, or MDIC, released a white paper regarding the hashtag #MakeCAPA framework. This white paper is the result of a collaborative effort of MDIC, the medical device industry, strategy consultants, as well as the FDA. However, the white paper does not reflect the FDA's current views, doesn't necessarily reflect their current views or their policies. However, the FDA was involved in input in generating the white paper. According to an FDA biomedical engineer who works on the MDIC case for Quality Collaborative Community, in which FDA participates, the framework showed a reduction of up to 80% of the amount of time it took for firms to put corrections in place in a recent CAPA process improvement pilot. The framework recasts corrective and preventive action as a risk-based continuous improvement tool that helps manufacturers focus on the most important events that could impact product quality and patient experience. The framework is intended to align with the FDA's quality system regulation requirements, ISO 13485, and ISO 14971, which requires that risk management be fully integrated into the established QMS. The FDA previously indicated that it is in the process of updating its QSR requirements to align with ISO 13485, 2016, in order to harmonize domestic and international requirements. Manufacturers may want to consider reviewing the framework and updating their CAPA processes. CAPAs may frequently take a long time, involve a lot of paperwork, and have very high administrative burden. And this framework may be one methodology to lessen that burden and make CAPA programs more efficient. As I mentioned, this framework is not necessarily the FDA's official perspective, but this framework has been drafted with an intent to comply with FDA QSR requirements. On May 12, 2023, the FDA updated its FAQ regarding the impact of the expiration of the COVID-19 public health emergency on EUAs. The FDA clarified that the end of the PHE will not impact FDA's ability to authorize devices, including tests, treatments, or vaccines for emergency use. The FDA also indicated that existing emergency use authorizations for devices remain in effect, and that the FDA may continue to issue new EUAs going forward while the EUA declarations under Section 564 of the Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act are in effect, and when the criteria to issue an EUA are satisfied. In addition, the FDA clarified that due to the expiration of the public health emergency, FDA will no longer expect manufacturers to submit Section 506J notifications to FDA for devices that the FDA has identified as critical to public health during the COVID-19 public health emergency. Section 506J of the Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act requires manufacturers of certain devices to notify FDA of a permanent discontinuance or an interruption in the manufacture of a device that is likely to lead to a meaningful disruption in domestic supply of the device during or in advance of a public health emergency. Section 506J applies to devices that are critical to public health during a public health emergency, including devices that are life-supporting, life-sustaining, or intended for use in emergency situations or used in surgery. It also applies to devices for which HHS has determined that information on potential meaningful supply disruptions of the device is needed during or in advance of the public health emergency. The FDA, however, encouraged manufacturers to continue to voluntarily notify FDA of manufacturing disruptions and discontinuances, and indicated that it would be issuing draft guidance on voluntary 506J notifications in the near future. On a related similar note, earlier this month on May 4th at a Senate Health Committee meeting, FDA Commissioner Robert Califf urged lawmakers to grant FDA the authority to require that device manufacturers submit shortage notifications outside of a public health emergency. On May 8th, 2023, Baxter International announced it signed a definitive agreement to sell its Biopharma Solutions unit for $4.25 billion to private equity group, including Warburg Pincus and Advent International. BPS provides sterile contract manufacturing solutions, parenteral delivery systems, and customized support services to the pharma and biotech industries. The proposed transaction includes BPS manufacturing facilities and approximately 1,700 employees in Bloomington, Indiana, and Halle, Germany. On May 2nd, DuPont announced that it agreed to acquire Spectrum Plastics Group, a specialty medical device and components manufacturer, from AEA investors for $1.75 billion. Spectrum manufactures specialty medical devices with a strategic focus on key, fast-growing therapeutic areas such as structural heart, electrophysiology, surgical robotics, and cardiovascular. On May 11th, the SEC announced that a major medical device manufacturer will pay more than $62 million to resolve charges that have violated the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act related to its sale of medical diagnostic equipment in China. Allegedly, the manufacturer's subsidiaries in China use special price discounts with distributors that create a significant risk that excessive distributor margins could be used to fund improper payments to government employees in a position to make procurement decisions. The SEC also alleged that the company's employees, distributors, and sub-dealers improperly influenced hospital officials to draft technical specifications to favor the company's products. Alleged inappropriate conduct included paying a hospital director to assist with procurement, as well as allegations that employees, directors, and sub-dealers engaged in improper bidding practices by preparing bids with other manufacturers' products to create the appearance of legitimate public tenders in order to satisfy minimum bid requirements under Chinese law. The company consented to the SEC's order without admitting or denying that the findings had violated the books and records internal accounting control provisions of the Securities Exchange Act of 1934. FCA compliance can be a daunting task, particularly in nations with a history of corruption. One of the complicating issues in foreign countries is that physicians are frequently employed by government-owned healthcare providers. Accordingly, medical device company relationships in foreign countries with physicians frequently implicate the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act. One interesting issue raised in this case regarding the distributor margins that the SEC alleged encouraged improper payments to government officials. That allegation has an interesting relationship to domestic fraud and abuse concerns under the federal anti-kickback statute. On occasion, we have seen compensation models with sales representatives and distributors that, after accounting for all costs and discounts, result in the manufacturer losing money or making a substantially below market profit on the sale of certain of its products. These types of arrangements are often referred to as loss leaders and are likely to arise in connection with promotional campaigns designed to drive sales of a particular product, where additional compensation is layered on top of existing compensation structures. As you may be aware, the activities of sales representatives and distributors, in other words, encouraging physicians and facilities to order, purchase, and use medical device products, directly implicate the federal anti-kickback statute. If a company is losing money or making a below-market profit on the sale of certain of its products, it may raise concerns under the federal anti-kickback statute. Specifically, the government may view such arrangements as engaging in commercially unreasonable transactions with sales representatives, distributors, and/or the customer to encourage the future use, purchase, or ordering of the company's products. The oversized compensation to the sales rep or distributor and/or unreasonably steep discounts provided to a customer could be viewed as remuneration provided in violation of the anti-kickback statute to induce future purchases. Accordingly, medical device companies should carefully review the impact of sales incentives and special discounts to ensure that such arrangements remain commercially reasonable. One of the government's longstanding concerns is that if sales representatives and distributors are overly compensated for the services, it may encourage them to engage in inappropriate financial relationships with customers to drive business. This concern was raised by the SEC, in this case under the FCPA, but this concern has also been raised in other anti-kickback and False Claims Act investigations. Now, despite these concerns, the discount safe harbor to the anti-kickback statute, as well as the statutory discount exception to the anti-kickback statute, do not place any firm limitations on the magnitude of discounts the medical device companies can provide to their customers. However, there have been numerous anti-kickback cases against medical device companies for providing free products to induce the purchase of other products. Accordingly, there is a spectrum of risk associated with the provision of discounts to a point where such discounts become commercially unreasonable and may raise anti-kickback concerns. Accordingly, medical device companies considering providing free products or products discounted below a commercially reasonable level should speak to the legal counsel and potentially consider structuring those arrangements to comply with a discount safe harbor to the anti-kickback statute, for example, under a bundle. The discount safe harbor to the anti-kickback statute allows the provision of an item or service for free or at a substantially discounted rate to induce the purchase of other products, as long as those products are reimbursable by the same federal healthcare program in the same manner and are appropriately documented in a written agreement in advance. And so it's possible to structure these types of arrangements, even the provision of free products, in an appropriate bundle under the discount safe harbor. However, there have been a strong history of prosecutions against companies for providing products for free to induce the purchase of other products outside of appropriately structured bundles. Similarly, compensation arrangements with sales representatives and distributors may be able to be structured to comply with the personal services safe harbor to the anti-kickback statute or the bona fide employment safe harbor as well. However, if those arrangements include commercially unreasonable compensation, raises a concern whether or not the requirements of those safe harbors can be complied with. In particular, the personal services safe harbor requires a methodology that is fair market value. And under the bona fide employment safe harbor, there's a risk that the government could allege that effectively having a compensation arrangement where a sales rep or distributor makes significant profit and the manufacturer does not, whether that's really a bona fide employment arrangement or is the business really being run for the benefit of the sales rep or the distributor. And so there are concerns there. If compensation to sales representatives or distributors becomes excessive, could raise anti-kickback concerns. Thank you for joining me today for this week's Medical Device Legal News. I'm Sam Bernstein, a partner in McGuire Woods Healthcare Group. I would also like to thank my colleague, Sophie Moros, for helping to make today's program possible. Look forward to seeing you next week.